This is a big week for the Jets, man. I am so excited for this week for the Jet fans. I know the Jet fans were not happy 3 weeks ago at MetLife when the Jets had the lead against the Patriots, and then that whole penalty hitting Mac Jones, Franklin Myers, and the interception was brought back, and then the Patriots in the second half just completely dominated the game. A lot of fans were just so very upset about that loss. That was a game that they should have won. The Jets should be 7-2, not 6-3. But nevertheless, this is a huge game for the Jets. Not only because it's a divisional game and they do not want to lose back-to-back games against the Patriots because they need to stay up in this conference and in this division, because if they do have as many wins as they expect to have in the division, if it's a tiebreak, the Jets get into the playoffs. And that's their whole goal. I know a lot of people think, oh, we can win the Super Bowl this year. They're not winning the Super Bowl. And if they win the Super Bowl, I'll be very surprised. The Bengals went all the way to the Super Bowl. They laid up a lousy goose egg against a very good Rams team. But I don't think this is their Super Bowl year. I think next year will be the year we're going as Jet fans thinking about a Super Bowl ring, because all the players that are going to be coming back, everybody that's under contract, the Jets are still in a very good position next year to be a top-end team. But if the Jets win this week against the Patriots, if the Patriots lose this week, they're 5-5. I don't remember the last time Bill Belichick was 5-5 in a regular season and in last place in the division. And if Kansas City loses against the LA Chargers in LA on Sunday Night Football, the number one seed in the AFC will be the New York Jets. It is crazy. Nobody would be thinking about this going into Week 12 as the Jets would be the number one seed in the AFC. Shows you what coaching and a coaching change could do, what a good GM, a GM that knows what he's doing when it comes to drafting, and what talent and young talent could do when they get developed, and they're developed right.
And I compared it last week to the 2012 Seahawks, the year before they won their Super Bowl against the Broncos. They were a new breakthrough, especially on defense with the Legion of Boom that year. They didn't have the pass rush that time, but they still had the linebackers. They still had that great secondary. And the Jets this year have that great secondary. Now, obviously, the Seattle safeties are better than anything the Jets have had this year, but Jordan Whitehead has played better. And this pass rush, fantastic ever since that Bengals game with Quinnen Williams having the outburst on the sideline. Very good against the run, turned it around from last year. They're 8th best against the run, and that's what they're going to have to do in this matchup against the Patriots. That's what they're going to have to do in a lot of the key matchups they have for the rest of this season. And offensively, their running game has still proved that they could be strong as long as their offensive line is able to hold up, which they were able to patch together nicely against the Bills. And they're getting some guys back for this week too, which I think should help against the Patriots that really has been reliant more on their defensive front this year rather than their secondary. As far as the expectations for the Jets next year trajectory, because they still have a lot of money, getting everyone signed, Quinnen Williams, CJ Mosley, getting him back signed again.
He's still under contract. What they need to do is negotiate another cutoff for Mosley and try to take some of that money and put it into other players like Kwan Alexander, Quentin Williams, Quincy Williams. Carl Lawson has one more year left on a contract. Maybe they extend that contract for another year or two. They're going to have money. And we all know Joe Douglas isn't going to overspend for anybody. And Quentin Williams is going to be a highly profiled player. They could franchise Quentin Williams next year. I don't think that'll make Quentin Williams very, very happy. I think they're going to find a way to give him a contract. The question is, how much is he going to take off that salary cap where in 2 or 3 years that could affect the Jets in the long run? But we're not even talking about the offseason because the Jets have a lot of football left. Maybe this is a year that's going to be special. Maybe they do pull off a win in the playoffs or 2 wins in the playoffs and take it all the way to the AFC title game where they could be up against Kansas City or up against the Buffalo Bills for a Super Bowl opportunity. And the Jets have been in this position back-to-back years in 2009 and 2010. 1 game away from playing in the Super Bowl with Rex Wright. This team is much better than that Super Bowl contending team. This team has much more talented young talent. They're developing. I'm excited. This team has a lot of years left to be a contender and championship contending opportunity.
And the way Joe Douglas has built this team, very similar to how the Bills really got good, drafting so well, and they were sticking with the rebuild and not overreacting to either big contracts or that one year where they randomly made the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor, kept a lot of their own guys, and then when they thought they got good, started to be more aggressive and made the splashes in free agency, made the splashes with the Stephon Diggs Diggs trade. And the Jets have a lot of room to be able to do that kind of thing, too, if they wanted to make a big trade. And
I don't think they will do that. The Bills, they spent money on Von Miller. They didn't need to do that. They could have built through the draft like the Jets. I can't see Joe Douglas next year going into free agency and bringing anybody in. I think he keeps his own players. I think he tries to maneuver the contracts, tries to save some money on the gap, pays his own players. This team is good enough to win a Super Bowl right now. When they get Breece Hall back and Elijah Vera-Tucker and Mekhi Becton, this team is more than good enough to win. All their draft picks, they could still get better in the draft. If they're missing a linebacker, they could draft one. If they're missing a safety, they could draft one. If they're missing a wide receiver, they can draft one. This team in the offseason, they were missing so many pieces. They needed a tight end, wide receivers, they needed a corner, edge rushers. It all was fixed in one offseason by Joe Douglas. And he added so much depth. Brought Brown in. He brought Herbig in. Finally, the Jets have depth, even losing players like Breece Hall and Elijah Vera-Tucker, where they can still compete and still be a top contending team.
They also have the leeway, too, if they want to make the big splash, because we've seen the trends of the big splashes working. Look at the Dolphins trading for Tyreek Hill. Look at the Eagles trading for A.J. Brown. How much better those two guys have made those offenses. You never know which receiver is going to be disgruntled at any given time, and the Jets could trade Elijah Moore, Denzel Mims for that kind of player. Same kind of thing with a safety. Somebody like Jesse Bates, if he doesn't re-sign with the Bengals.
I think he's too expensive.
He might be. I think the Bengals will bring him back, too, but the Jets have leeway to do that now because they've really built everything else well.
The Giants, they have a big game this week, too, against the Lions. MetLife Stadium. The Giants are hot. They're playing good football. They are playing against teams that are inferior to them. Look at the team that they beat last week, the Texans. Now, that's not taking shots at the Giants. You play who's ever in front of you. But the Giants are a very young team, and they have some talent. Saquon Barkley, if he's not the best running back in the NFL, he's second or third. He's doing everything he possibly can to keep this team offensively sound. Slate has been the number one target for Daniel Jones for the last couple of weeks. He's been explosive, and they're playing good defense. The only thing that worries me about the Giants is they depend too much on the blitz. And when they play teams that use that extra wide receiver or use that running back up in the seam, they're going to have problems against the blitz. Teams are going to start dominating against the blitz. The Dallas Cowboys with Pollard and Zeke Elliott when he can catch the ball. The Commanders with Gibson and the wide receiving core that they have. So teams like to hide the deficiencies of their defense by blitzing. It doesn't always work. Wink likes to do that. Did it with Baltimore for years, and now he's doing it with the Giants. Has it worked? It has worked. Rex Ryan did it too. It worked for the Jets. Teams figure that out, and when you play the better teams, when you make the playoffs, teams will start to attack those problems with your defense. That has a lot to do with the secondary and how bad the secondary could be.
Different coverage schemes as well, because sometimes you could be just a raw man blitz or a raw zone blitz scheme, and that kind of thing get exposed. You look at a team like the Steelers with Mike Tomlin, after they won their Super Bowl in 2008, they've had issues in the playoffs because teams knew how to game plan against that zone blitz and be able to expose it. The Ravens did it a lot. The Patriots did it a lot. You have to be able to be a mixture. Look at the Broncos when they won the Super Bowl. They were an outside rushing scheme, but they mixed up man and zone coverage. Now, granted, they had a much better secondary than this Giants team does, but still, that's the thing that Wink Martindale is going to have to adjust to, because when they man blitzed a lot in the fourth quarter of this game, they had a lot of trouble tackling on screens, and they had to take a lot of penalties because of that. And when the pass rush wasn't getting there, they looked like they were getting all these extra yards, and that's the Texans. Imagine what a better team could do. The Eagles, Washington you mentioned with Gibson and Brian Robinson, Minnesota, Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison. In the playoffs too, there's going to be a lot of good running back competition they're going to have to face no matter who they play in Seattle, San Francisco. In terms of the offense, yeah, Slayton's played better, but they still need a little more trustworthy with the receiving depth. Hopefully Daniel Bellinger, when he comes back from his eye injury, he had eye socket surgery, could add an element to that offense, because they can't just rely on Saquon to do everything and Daniel Jones running to be able to do everything.
The NFLPA petitions to have all grass field. You heard it from the Jets. The Jets in 2023 will have grass, not turf. It seems like it's going to happen. I think with everything that's gone on with these ACL injuries, these ankle problems that these players have had, Elijah Vera-Tucker tore his tricep. That had a lot to do with him putting his arm on the field. Maybe it is the turf, but a lot of players are complaining that that's why the injuries are happening. So is this a good move for the NFL? If the players want it and it makes them happy, I said it's going to be costly, but I know there's a lot of ex-NFL players that say the NFL is a multi-billion-dollar organization. It doesn't matter how much money they put into the fields because they're going to get what they put into it. I think it makes a lot of sense for the NFL to change turf into grass, even though I think it's going to be very costly. I don't know if they're going to do that throughout the NFL. I don't know if the ownership is going to do that in all the fields, but we heard the Jets and the Giants will do that. So if the Jets and Giants are doing it, I'm sure sure it's going to transition a lot of teams and a lot of stadiums to change.
It's going to be a league-wide transition now. Roger Goodell's contract is going to expire in 3 years, so maybe a new commissioner would be able to lobby for that kind of thing. What worries me more with this kind of operation would be the multi-purpose facilities. Atlanta with their new stadium, the LA Chargers and the Rams with their new stadium that are used for more than just football. Would they be able to adjust to having natural grass or artificial grass like MetLife Stadium does and be able to have their other things work for the operation of the stadium? But you're right. The NFL has so much money, they should be able to fund it. The owners of the teams should be able to fund that kind of thing. And even the stadium executives themselves. There's a lot of money that could come from all different sources where this operation is possible and should be something that should be in effect for these players.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, our 3-for-all picks of the week.
I gained a little ground with the Green Bay Packers comeback against the Dallas Cowboys. 2-point lead for you right now. So we'll start with the New York Jets at the New England Patriots. The other under very low for this one, 38. I am going to take the Jets in this one. I did not take them the first time against the Patriots, but I am going to take them this time. I think their running game really proved a lot towards the end of that game against the Buffalo Bills, and their offensive line a lot more intact to be able to counter that pass rush. Matt Judon leads the league in sacks right now. They got a good interior as well. And the Jets, they're 8th best against the run this year, which I think will be able to counter the Patriots running attack very well. And they do not have the receivers whatsoever to take advantage of that secondary. So I'll take the Jets in this one with the under.
I have the Jets this week. I think the Jets are going to completely kill them. And even if it's 27-10, which I'm predicting, it's still under the 38. And I think it will be under 38. I think the Jets are going to be able to run against the Patriots. I think the Jets are going to be able to throw against the Patriots. The secondary, even though it's played well over the years against the Jets, even in the first game, in the second half, the secondary played very well. Yes, Devin McCourty, he definitely conquered that game. But I think it's going to be different this game. I think Zach Wilson's going to figure not to throw the ball deep, not to force the ball in places that don't make sense. He is going to use his running game with Robinson and Carter and dominate the game. The Jets win the game on the under.
Next game, the Dallas Cowboys at the Minnesota Vikings. 48.5, the over-under. I've been liking the Vikings a lot this year. I've said they were a very complete team, but this just feels like an ideal letdown spot for them. They had the big comeback against Buffalo, down 27-10. Justin Jefferson makes that miraculous catch. Even as a Giants fan, I'll admit it was better than the Odell catch. They win in overtime. Dallas, they had that big collapse. I think this is just a letdown game for Minnesota. I'm going to take the Cowboys here. I think their receivers will have their best game. CeeDee Lamb, I could see having close to 150 yards in this game. I think Michael Gallup has his best game since coming back. Dallas defense will be able to, I think, take advantage of a smaller Vikings offensive line and stop the run, not like they did last week. So I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys in this game. I'll take them on the under.
I have the Dallas Cowboys, too. When you look at what Minnesota's done the last couple of weeks, especially coming back against the Buffalo Bills and beating them in overtime, I think Dallas is going to be able to get at them. I think this is one of the best defenses in the league. One of the top 3 front sevens in all of football with Micah Parsons, Esch, and I think they have the ability to go at you and get you. Kirk Cousins just holds the ball too long, and when he holds the ball too long, he gets himself into trouble. He forces the ball to Jefferson. I think Diggs will be taking Jefferson. There will be chances for a pick 6 or interception. I do believe the Cowboys win, and I believe it'll be on the under as well.
All right, last one, Sunday Night Football. The Kansas City Chiefs at the LA Chargers. Over-under for this is 52. The Chargers are likely to get both of their wide receivers that have been hurt for a while, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. They've been practicing all week. That will make this game a lot closer. I am still going to take the Chiefs, though, because I do worry about still some things with the Chargers defense. Asante Samuel did play very well last week against the 49ers, but beyond that, the rest of their secondary is very spotty. Kansas City does a great job at spreading the ball around, and the Chargers have still had their issues stopping the run, so I think either Pacheco or Hilaire, whoever gets the majority of the touches, will have a nice game. And the Chiefs have been able to stop the run themselves. Number 5 run defense in the league right now, so I don't think Austin Eckler has the big game we've been used to seeing rushing-wise. Receiving-wise, I think he'll do well, but I don't think it'll be enough. I think the Chiefs win close. I'm going to take them on the over.
I've got the Chargers in this game. I think they go into L.A. They have Keenan Allen. They have Mr. Mike back. I think they're going to be able to throw against this defense. I think this defense is very overrated. I do believe Patrick Mahomes will have a good game because with all the injuries the Chargers have, they're not going to be able to defend a high-flying offense of the Kansas City Chiefs. But I do believe the Chargers, being that they're home, it'll be loud, and with the weapons they have, I think they're going to be able to do enough to win this game. Give me the Chargers over.